Hello, hello. Welcome back to Nobody Told Me This, the channel where we lift the veil on corporate and professional inside info and make it available to everyone. So, in this video, we're going to talk about a word that gets thrown around every boardroom, every team meeting, and every typical LinkedIn post about business growth. And this word has been twisted and stretched so far from its actual meaning that it's basically meaningless at this point, and that word is strategy. So today I'm going to cover what strategy actually means, what it absolutely does not mean, why everyone seems to be using it wrong, and if you're earlier in your career, why you probably don't need to worry about it too much right now. So first we'll start with, how did the word strategy become so meaningless? And here's the thing about buzzwords, and yes, strategy has become a buzzword. They start out as legitimate and useful concepts, but then they get picked up by all the corporate drones who drop them into enough slide decks and business reviews that the buzzwords eventually lose all value. Everyone starts using them because they sound important. Unfortunately, things usually get to a point where nobody's really sure what the word means anymore, but nobody wants to be the person who raises their hand and asks for clarification on, like, hey, what the hell are we actually talking about? So if you walk into almost any organization, you'll hear it constantly. We need a strategy for this. What's our growth strategy? We need to think more strategically. He's not as strategic with his clients as we'd like him to be. Strategy gets dropped into conversations like, a little bit of seasoning salt on top of the corporate BS to make it more palatable, but it often has the opposite of its intended effect. If you were to ask most people to define strategy or to tell you specifically what the strategy is, you get a lot of confident sounding vagueness with some generalities thrown in for good measure. You won't often get a real tangible answer. And that's a problem because a word that should mean everything to a business, its strategy, effectively means nothing. So we'll start with what strategy is not. And I'm going to be blunt here because this is something people get wrong all the time. A goal is not a strategy. And I'll say it again. A goal is not a strategy. We want to grow the business. That's a goal. A perfectly reasonable goal, but a goal nonetheless. We want to increase market share. Goal. We want to be an industry leader. Goal again. We want to improve employee retention. Still a goal. All good things, but goals, not strategies. None of those statements tell you anything about the how. They tell you where you want to end up, but they say nothing about how you plan to get there. And how you plan to get there, wherever there is the entire job of a strategy. The there is the goal. So if a strategy isn't a goal, then what is it? A strategy is a specific set of actions, decisions, and resource allocations that you're going to take, make, and pursue in order to reach your goal. It's an actual plan. You want to be seen as strategic, you need to be the man with the plan. So next time someone says our strategy is to grow the business, what they've actually told you is their goal. The strategy piece comes in after you set your goal. Like, okay, you're going to grow the business. How are you going to grow it? Through what markets? With what resources? What's your timeline? What are you going to do differently than what you're doing right now? The answers to those questions are your strategy. And we all grasp concepts differently, so I'm going to present this in another way that might help visualize it a little bit. Think of the business or your life or whatever else you have going on as being made up of 3 layers. The top layer is your goal. It's your destination. It's the finish line, so to speak. Where do you want to end up? We want to grow revenue by 30% over the next 2 years. Goal. Below the goal, the middle layer is your strategy. It's the map you'll use to get to the goal. How are you going to get there? How are you going to grow revenue by 30% over the next 2 years? We're going to expand into 2 new regional markets, launch a referral program, and develop a mid-level offering to capture a client segment we're currently missing. That's your strategy. Finally, the bottom layer are your tactics. The tactics are the specific actions that make up the strategy. Continuing with the travel metaphor, the tactics are the actual turn by turn directions on the strategy route. So you're going to do all these things we just mentioned. How are you going to do them? We're going to identify new target markets by Q1. We're going to develop the referral program by Q2. And we're going to launch our new service offering by Q3. Goals, strategies, and tactics are three very different things with three very different levels of specificity. And the thing is, all three are necessary if you want to have a shot at achieving your goal. The terms are not interchangeable, so it's really in everyone's best interest to understand them and use them in their correct context. It's like, great, but why is it so important to distinguish between the three terms? Because when a team can't distinguish between a goal and a strategy, a few things tend to happen and they produce some not so great results. First, people start moving in a bunch of different directions without any shared understanding of why they're doing what they're doing. This is a total waste of time and money. Second, when things don't go well, no one can really tell where or why things went wrong. Was it the goal that was wrong? No, of course not. Was it the strategy? No, that was definitely good too. The execution? No way. We're all talented people. We know what we're doing. Guess what though? It was definitely one, two, or all three of those things that went wrong. But if you never clearly defined the goal, the strategy, and the tactics, you'll never be able to identify what broke down and where. And finally, when it's used as a buzzword, people start to feel like strategy is just something that, like the leadership team says when they don't have a real answer for something, which, yeah, sometimes that's exactly what's happening. It sounds important, but it means nothing without context. Being able to clearly articulate the difference between a goal and a strategy isn't just me being particular about the terms. It serves as the foundation for successfully executing on an initiative. Now, as I am wont to do in these videos, I'm going to shift gears because this bit is important, especially for anyone who has ever been told that they need to think more strategically and had absolutely no idea what that meant. There is a concept in leadership literature, something Peter Nordhaus discusses in his book, Leadership Theory and Practice, and I studied this in grad school. It's one of the most practical takes on understanding how organizations should function and what should be expected of you at different levels. The basic idea is this. The skills and competencies that matter most to your success are not the same at every level of an organization. They change pretty significantly, I might add, as you climb that lovely corporate ladder. At the lower levels of an organization, what matters most are your technical skills. The technical skills are your ability to do the job. They're your functional knowledge, hands-on expertise, and mastery of the tools and processes required by your role. It's the level where you can prove yourself and build your credibility. As you move into middle management, expectations change a bit. The technical skills still matter, but they become less central to your daily tasks. And what starts to matter more are what Nordhaus calls human skills. And human skills are your ability to lead people, communicate effectively, build relationships, and manage others, not just doing the work yourself. And then at the senior leadership level, what matters most are what Nordhaus calls conceptual skills. And conceptual skills, it's basically a different way of saying strategic thinking. The skills are the ability to see the big picture, think several steps ahead, connect the dots across your organization, and make sound decisions without complete information. And here's why this matters regardless of your rung on the ladder. If you're in the earlier stages of your career and someone tells you that you need to be more strategic, it's worth asking them to clarify what they mean by that. Strategic at what level? Strategic how? Because if you're 2 years into your career and your manager wants you to think like someone at a VP level, that's likely an unrealistic expectation. Your job at that early stage in your career might genuinely be to just master your daily functions, not set a strategy. On the flip side, if you're a middle manager who's been in the same role for a while and you're starting to wonder why you're not advancing, it might be time to do a little bit of a gut check. Are you still leading with your technical skills instead of human skills? Are you working on your conceptual skills? Because the next level up is going to want to see a demonstration of something other than your technical ability. So it's important to keep in mind that valued skill sets change as you move up the corporate ladder. So now that we've covered that, what does thinking strategically actually look like in practice? Great question. And it's one so many of us don't have a good answer to. But here are a few examples of strategic thinking. Thinking strategically means you're not just solving today's problem. It means you're also trying to figure out why the problem keeps coming up in the first place and what needs to be done in order to prevent it from reoccurring. Thinking strategically means that when you're given a goal, you don't just shrug and say like, okay, and go on your merry way to try to, achieve the goal. Instead, you ask about how you're supposed to achieve the goal. What's the plan? What are we actually going to do? What do we need? What potential problems might we encounter? Thinking strategically means you can step back from your daily tasks and visualize how your work connects to the broader goals of the organization. And thinking strategically means that you're comfortable with taking some time to make a thoughtful decision instead of just going with the first idea that pops into your mind. So these examples all consist of learnable skills. And like pretty much all learnable skills, you get better at them with practice. There is no like snap your fingers, quick fix to becoming strategic. You do have to work at it. And I think that's part of the reason why so many of us struggle with it. So to wrap up, finally, I'm going to reiterate just a few things that I covered in the video because strategy and understanding it, it's so important. First, strategy is not a buzzword. It's not a synonym for a goal. It's not a term you randomly drop into a sentence to sound more professional. Strategy is a specific, intentional plan for how you are going to pursue a goal. Without the strategy, you're relying on hope. And like one of my former sales managers loves to say, hope is not a strategy. The next time you're in a meeting and someone drops the S-bomb, strategy, ask yourself if they're actually presenting a strategy. Are they telling you how you're getting there, or are they just giving you a goal without any roadmap? And if someone ever tells you to think more strategically, don't panic. Take a look at where you are in your career and what strategy means at your level. Consider whether you're being asked to reasonably stretch beyond your current role in an effort to grow, or if you're being asked to act and think like a senior leader before you've had the chance to appropriately develop your skills in order to do that. Growth takes time. It takes direction and it takes practice. But now that you know what a strategy is and isn't, you're not only ready to use the term appropriately, but you're ready to put it into action. As always, if you felt that this content was useful, like it and maybe share it with someone else who struggles with strategy. So many of us do. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll talk about how to reinvigorate and motivate yourself or your team in tough times. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.